Spiritual Awakening 101. Today we are talking about the moment everything changes, the before and after, the crack in the armor that lets the light in. We're talking about spiritual awakening, what triggers it, what it feels like, and why it most and almost never look like what we expected. If you ever felt like the ground shifted beneath you and you caught and you kidnapped and you could not find your way back to the person you used to be, this episode is for you. Because here's the truth I've learned from studying this topic and from hearing hundreds of stories. You don't find awakening, it finds you. Usually when you're least prepared, the most resistant. Let's start with a question that haunts everyone who's ever gone through this. Why now? Why? After years of living a certain way, does the bottom suddenly fall out? Why does conscious decide to wake up on a random Tuesday afternoon, or in the middle of sleepless night, or while you are crying in your car in a parking lot? The answer is both simple and devastating. Spiritual awakening is usually triggered by collapse of something you thought would save you: a relationship, a career, a belief, a version of yourself that you spent decades constructing. When the things falls apart, you're left standing in the rubble, wondering who you were without it. Sometimes the trigger is sudden: a death, a diagnosis, a betrayal, a car accident that you walk away from while others did not. In one instant, the illusion of safety is shattered, and you are forced to confront questions you've been successfully avoiding entire adult life. But just as often, the trigger is low, a creeping sense that something is wrong, even though everything looks right from the outside: the house, the partner, the job, the weekends getaways, and yet you feel hollow. This is what some traditions call divine dissatisfaction or divine dissatisfaction. Is the soul way to telling you that you're living someone else's life. I want to see it water moment because it's in part. Sometimes awakening does not arrive with the thunder and lightning. Sometimes it arrives as a whisper that gets louder every year until you finally turn around and say, "Okay, what do you want from me?" There's a pattern across almost every awakening story I've encountered. It goes like this: confront, then crisis, then cracking open. You build a life that works, then something happens that your coping mechanisms cannot handle. And when your usually tools fail, you have two choices: build bigger walls or let the walls fall. The people walk up for the ones who let the walls fall, not because they're braver than anyone else, usually because they're too exhausted to hold them anyone and anymore. Here's what the fascinating: the trigger itself is not always negative. Sometimes people wake up during the moments of profound beauty, watching the sunset that feels somehow personal, holding a newborn, realizing you're part of something ancient. making love and feeling the boundaries between you and the other person dissolve. These moments are cracks too, just cracks in the other direction. Instead of pain breaking you open, love does. And the result is the same. You glimpse something beyond the ordinary, and you can never fully go back to seeing the world the way you used to. I've thought a lot about why these moments happen. Why some people brush up against infinite while standing in the line at the grocery store, or driving to a work or folding laundry. And I've come to believe that this is not about trigger at all. It's about readiness. The trigger is just the key, but you have to be standing at the door. And most of us spend our lives walking past the door, pretending we don't see it because we know. We know that if we open it, we'll have to change. Change is a part we don't talk about enough in spiritual circles. We love to talk about enlightenment and peace and oneness, but we forget to mention that before peace come disintegration. Before oneness come the terrifying realization that you are alone with something vast and you have no idea what. This is why awakening is often described as a death, because parts of you is actually to die. The part that needed approval, the part is defined itself by achievements. The part that you believe it could control the future, these parts don't just fade away. They have to be mourned. I've spoken with people who's gone through this and they describe it as grieving someone who is still alive. They grieve the person they used to be, the person who could watch TV for 6 hours to feel fine, the person who cared about promotions and square footage and the neighbor's thought. The person is gone, and their places is someone who cries at beauty, who can pretend anymore, who feels everything more acutely and has no idea how to function in a world that seems to be sleepwalking. This is the dark night of the soul that the mystics wrote about. And it's real, it's not poetic. It's waking up at 3 a.m. with your heart racing, no idea why. It's waking through your day, feeling like you're behind glass, watching everyone else to go through the motion while you can't remember how the motion is anymore. But there's what I've learned, and here's what I need you to hear. The dark night ends, not because the world changes, but because you do. Eventually, the new way of seeing becomes your normal. Eventually, you learn to live with the open door. And when that happens, you start to notice things you never noticed before. You notice that people are suffering and you can actually see it beyond. You notice that nature is alive in a way it never perceived. You notice that love is actually the only thing that matters. And you spend decades chasing things that don't. This is the gift on the other side of the breaking. But you can get the gift without the breaking. There's no shortcut. You can bypass the disintegration and arrive at peace. The path goes through, not around. I want to talk about triggers that don't get enough attention. Physical illness, for example, when your body fails you, when you cannot rely on it anymore, you're forced to inhabit a different relationship with yourself. You have to find out who are you when you can do, when you can produce, when you can perform. This is why so many spiritual traditions include practices as asceticism or fasting. Not because suffering is good, but because comfort makes us forget. When everything is easy, we don't ask hard questions. When we never hurry and hungry, we don't know what we're actually hungry for. Another trigger that doesn't get enough attention is success. Reaching goal and finding it empty, getting the promotion, the relationship, the house, and realizing there's still the hole. This is an own kind of crisis, and it's surprisingly common among people who seem to have everything. There's a particular loneliness to waking up while everyone around you thinks you're winning. You can explain that you achieved everything you wanted and you feel nothing. You can say the mountain you climbed turned out to be made of sand. And then there's a trigger of meeting someone who's awake. This is a real thing. You encounter a person, a teacher, a friend, sometimes even a stranger, and you recognize something is then that you didn't know existed. A stillness, a presence, a way of being that makes your constant striving look exhausting. That recognition itself a trigger because once you've seen it in some else or someone else, you can't use and you can unsee it. You know it's possible, and knowing it's possible means you have to ask yourself why you don't have it. I've thought a lot of timing. Why now? Why not 10 years ago? When you could be save yourself so much trouble. And have come to believe that awakening happened exactly when it's supposed to, not when we want it to. You can force the seed to sprout before it's ready. You can only prepare the soil. Maybe you are listening to this right now and you're in the middle of it. The ground is shaking. Everything you thought knew is was for grabs. You're wondering if you're losing your mind, or this is what finding it feels like. Let me tell you what I tell myself when I'm in that place. Keep going. Don't run back to the old answers. Don't rebuild the walls just because you are scared of the wind. The wind is how you are alive. The shakings is how you know something real is happening. There is a teaching in some traditions and awakenings like falling in love in the universe. I feel like falling in love is terrifying. It requires surrender. It requires trusting that you won't be destroyed by what open into. Like falling in love, it changes everything. You stop wanting the things you used to want. You start caring about things that used to seem irrelevant. Your priorities recognize themselves without your permission. This is why people who wake up often changes their lives. They live careers that don't matter. They end relationships that never real. They move to a place that feed their souls, not because they are trying to be dramatic, but because they literally can't stay in old containers anymore. The containers were built for a person you used to be, and the person is gone. I want to say something here that might uncomfortable. Not everyone who goes through the crisis wake up. Some people just get broken and stay broken. The difference is what you do with the breaking, whether let it open you or whether you let it harden you. This is the choice, the center of every awakening. And it's not a one time choice, it's a choice you make every day, sometimes every hour. Open or close, curious or defensive, willing to be changed or desperate to stay the same. The triggers will keep coming, by the way. Life will keep handing you keys. The question is not whether you face another crisis, the question is whether you keep walking past the door. I think this is the mystic meant when they talk about being born again. Not in the simplistic way we sometimes hear it, but in a real way. Dying to who you were so that you were becoming can alive, and then dying again and again and again. Because awakening is one of the time, even its process. Spiral. You think you're done, and life shows you another layer, another place where you're still asleep, another story you're still telling yourself about who you are. And if you're lucky, if you're brave, let the layer fall away too. You keep waking, you keep dying, you keep opening until there's nothing left to defend and nothing left to lose. So here's what I want to leave you with. Your awakening moment is already on its way, or it's already here, or it passed you by and you're still picking it up the pieces. However, it shows up, however, it showed you, know this: you are not broken, you are open, and the opening, as terrifying as it is the only way to be truly alive. Thank you for being here. Thank you for doing the work. Thank you for letting yourself be changed by whatever is changing you. If this is episode resonated, I'd love to hear the story, your awakening moment, whatever triggered it, whatever is still taking you. You can find me on social media or leave a comment on the show notes. And if you know someone who's in the middle of their own cracking open, share this with them. They might need to hear that they are not alone. Well, talk soon. More to come, people. See you soon.